especially the way that she fell and, how she was holding herself and how much pain she was in.
Sophie Cunningham will be out for the remainder of the season with a knee injury.
There are moments in sports when you can literally feel the air sucked out of the arena. Moments where time slows down and everyone knows something just went terribly wrong. For the Indiana Fever, that moment came when Sophie Cunningham collapsed to the floor. 1 second, she was fighting for a loose ball, her usual fiery self. The next second, silence, gasps from the crowd, teammates frozen in disbelief, and in that instant, the Fever's season changed forever.
Alex Filippo, she reported that Sophie Cunningham did tear her MCL.
It happened fast. Too fast.
Sophie Cunningham, one of the toughest, most energetic players on the roster, suddenly buckled after contact with Connecticut Sun guard Bria Hartley. She didn't bounce back up. She didn't even try. She clutched her knee, wincing, clearly in agony. Everyone in the building knew this wasn't just a bruise or a rolled ankle. This was serious. Even head coach Stephanie White admitted later that her first thought was panic. Not for the scoreboard, not for the game plan, but for Sophie herself. The way she went down, the way she grabbed at her leg, it was obvious something had snapped. She tried to rally the team at halftime, but you could tell it rattled her too. She even said it felt like a gut punch they had to survive.
It's like crap, and then you go down there and you see her, and it's like, okay, just want her to calm down and be able to regroup.
After the game, all eyes were on the Fever staff. Everyone wanted answers. Was Sophie okay? Could she walk? Would she be back? The only update? An MRI scheduled for the next day. That's how uncertain it was in the moment. But the worry was written on everyone's faces. Fans feared the worst. And when the results finally came in, the fears were confirmed. A torn MCL. Surgery required. Season over. In the blink of an eye, the Fever lost one of their most important pieces. Now, injuries happen in sports. Everyone knows that. But this one felt different. Not just because of how severe it was, but because of who was involved. The player that delivered the hit, Bria Hartley, has a reputation that stretches across the league. Think about it. She's been in altercations, ejections, physical run-ins with multiple players. Fans joke that if there's chaos on the court, odds are Hartley's somewhere nearby. So when Sophie went down and it was Hartley again, people weren't shocked. Upset? Absolutely. Furious? You bet. But surprised? Not even a little bit.
And that she would be out for the rest of the season, but she is expected to make a full recovery before next season, so obviously that is good news.
And here's the part that left fans shaking with anger. After Sophie was on the floor, rolling in pain, Hartley didn't look distraught. She didn't rush over to check on her opponent. Instead, she cracked a smile. Think about that. One of the most beloved players on the Fever roster, lying on the court with her season essentially finished, and the player who hit her is smiling. Whether Hartley meant it or not, that moment told fans everything they needed to know. To them, this wasn't just a basketball collision. It looked deliberate, calculated, targeted, and suddenly, what should have been written off as bad luck started to feel like something much darker. And here's why fans are so gutted. Sophie Cunningham wasn't just a role player. She was the spark, the personality, the fire of this Fever team. Caitlin Clark might draw the headlines, but Sophie was the heart. She was the one talking trash, diving on the floor, showing raw emotion in every play. She had charisma, she had grit, she had that rare ability to connect with fans who maybe weren't even hardcore basketball junkies. Sophie was on her way to being a breakout star, not just for the Fever, but for the entire WNBA. And now, that story is cut short. That energy is ripped out of the lineup, and the fans feel robbed of what could have been. But here's the thing, Sophie's injury is only half the story. Because what makes this truly shocking isn't just what happened on the floor, it's what happened afterward, or more specifically, what didn't happen. No suspension, no fine, no public statement condemning dirty play, nothing. And when you pair that silence with the way Caitlin Clark has been targeted since her rookie year and the repeated pattern of suspicious fouls on other stars, you start to see a very ugly picture forming. The question is the WNBA ignoring a dangerous problem or quietly allowing it to happen? Here's where this story goes from tragic to downright infuriating. Because you'd think, after Sophie Cunningham's injury, after a hit that looked reckless, delivered by a player with a long history of chaos, the WNBA would step in, maybe issue a suspension, maybe fine Bria Hartley, at the very least, release a statement saying this kind of play won't be tolerated. But what did fans get? Nothing. Not a fine, not a suspension, not even a slap on the wrist. It was radio silence from the league office. And that silence, it spoke louder than any words could. It told players, go ahead, play dirty, we're not going to stop you. And here's why fans aren't buying the bad luck excuse anymore. Because Sophie's injury isn't some isolated freak accident, It's part of a disturbing pattern. We've watched Caitlin Clark, the league's biggest draw, get shoved, hacked, taunted, and fouled hard game after game since her rookie year. We've seen stars getting knocked out of the air, yanked by the hair, or blindsided by suspicious plays, and every single time, the same thing happens. No fines, no accountability, no real protection. Fans aren't stupid, they're connecting the dots, and the picture isn't pretty. It looks like the league's most marketable, most beloved players are the very ones being targeted. And when the people in charge refuse to act, you have to ask, is this just incompetence or something worse? Think about what Sophie Cunningham represented. She wasn't just a solid player, she was the personality, the grit, the heart of the Indiana Fever. Caitlin Clark might be the face of this new WNBA wave, but Sophie was the fire, the one who brought toughness and energy every night. Together, they could have been one of the most exciting duos in the league. But now, that story is gone, and fans feel cheated. They bought tickets expecting to see Sophie and Caitlin lighting it up together. Instead, they're left watching injuries pile up while the league pretends nothing's wrong. That's not just a loss for the Fever, that's a loss for the entire WNBA. So here we are, Sophie Cunningham out for the year. Caitlin Clark returning, but stepping back into a league that feels stacked against her, and the WNBA stumbling through silence and excuses while fans lose faith by the day. This was supposed to be the breakout season, the turning point, the moment the WNBA finally started to matter on the mainstream stage. Instead, it's been injuries, dirty hits, questionable signings, and leadership that looks completely out of touch. And the worst part, none of this had to happen. If the league had stepped up months ago, set a standard, punished dirty play, actually protected its stars, Sophie Cunningham would still be on the floor. But they didn't. They stayed quiet, and now they're paying the price. So I'll leave you with this. Was Sophie Cunningham's injury just bad luck, or the clearest sign yet that the WNBA is quietly destroying itself from the inside out? But before we wrap this up, we have to talk about the elephant in the room, Bria Hartley. Because let's be honest, to a lot of fans, she's become the villain of this story. And it's not hard to see why. This isn't her first time in the middle of chaos, not even close. Look back at her history. She's shoved players to the ground, pulled Angel Reese's hair, gotten into scraps with Rakia Jackson, even been ejected for mixing it up with Ariel Atkins. It's like every time the WNBA has a messy on-court drama, Hartley's name is floating somewhere in the mix. So when Sophie Cunningham went down, when the replay showed Hartley charging into her knee, fans weren't exactly shocked. Upset, yes. Furious, absolutely. But surprised? Not one bit. And then came the smile. That one moment where Hartley grinned after the collision. For thousands of fans watching, that wasn't just bad optics. It was confirmation. Confirmation that this wasn't just clumsy defense or an unfortunate accident. It looked intentional. Almost like she was proud of what just happened. And that right there is why fans have been ruthless online. They're not just angry, they're demanding action. They're calling her dirty, reckless. Some even want her banned from the league altogether. Because to them, Hartley doesn't just represent one bad play, she represents the very problem with the WNBA right now. A culture where targeting stars comes with no consequences. But here's the twist. Sophie Cunningham herself? She isn't pointing the finger. Despite losing her season, despite all the pain and heartbreak, Sophie hasn't come out and said, "This is Bria Hartley's fault." And that's exactly who Sophie is. Tough, competitive, fiery, but also professional. She's not feeding the drama. She's not crying foul. She's focused on recovery, on supporting her teammates, on making sure she's back next season better than ever. And in a way, that makes fans love her even more. Because while they're screaming for justice, while they're fuming over Hartley's smirk, Sophie is showing the kind of composure and humility that reminds everyone why she was becoming a star in the first place. But make no mistake, that grace doesn't erase the anger. In fact, it makes it worse. Because fans are watching the player who embodies everything good about the game, toughness, charisma, heart, lose an entire season, while the player with a reputation for cheap shots walks away untouched. And that contrast, it's brutal. It leaves people asking bigger questions. What does it say about the WNBA, when its most marketable, fan-friendly players are the ones paying the price? What does it say about the league, when villains get to smile and move on, while heroes are left on crutches? That's why this story won't die down, because it's not just Sophie's season that feels robbed. It's the entire narrative the Fever were building, the excitement fans were clinging to, the hope that this year was going to be different. And now all of that is tainted, not just by the injury, but by the feeling that it could have been prevented, that it should have been prevented. So yes, Sophie Cunningham is out for the season, but this isn't the end of her story. Fans are already rallying around her, already waiting for her comeback. And when she does return, she's going to carry with her not just the fire she's always had, but the weight of everything that happened this year. As for Bria Hartley, she'll carry the other side, that reputation, that smirk, that villain role fans have already cast her in. And the WNBA, they're stuck in the middle, faced with a choice they can't avoid forever. Do they finally start protecting their stars, or do they keep pretending this isn't happening until the fans, the ones who see everything, finally walk away?